Okay, now let's run through all the basic mechanisms needed in order to make this little robot to work. Um, by the way, everything I did, with the exception of the base, which could be done various different ways, but I decided to make one solid base just in case I decided to hang this drum vertically. So the base was too big for my printer. I ended up laser cutting it out of a piece of acrylic. But it's not necessary to do it that way, especially if it's going to be sitting on a table. You could make it out of various pieces that bolt together and serve the same purpose. But pretty much everything other than that base was done on my Ultimaker 3 extended printer. I have the extended version. You don't need it. It's pretty much any printer with a standard bed will be able to do it. And I used the tough PLA material. It's not necessary to use that specific one, but that's what I had and it worked great. So anyways, let's start talking about the various parts. This is just the base I designed. Most of this is just for lighting. They really serve no purpose other than structural. This little groove here I designed to fit kind of around this area. It's hard to see with a dressing over it, but I kind of designed it to clamp onto this right here, so that it kind of, between all of them, they kind of grab the drum and hold it in place. If it's on a table, it's not necessary. It just has to have something that centers it. But because I was thinking of possibly hanging it, I added that just to see if that would be enough to hold the drum. So we have the larger piece, which basically holds everything to the base. We have this small piece here, which is a rotation mechanism. And all it does is it sits on top of the servo horn, and you just bolt it on, and then it moves along with the servo horn. And then up here it has a couple of places where you can basically capture the second servo and grab it. So it's basically one servo bolted onto a second servo. This isn't ideal if you're doing something that carries a lot of load, but this one doesn't, and it's the quickest, simplest way of getting two servos together. I was afraid that maybe I'd get a little bit of wobble here as it moved, so I added this little arm right there that just rides over the servo. That way, if the whole thing wanted to shift, if there was too much slop and it wanted to shift, that would stop it and keep it from rocking too much. I also made this lip here extra white, so it touches a little more surface area. If it wants to shift, that'll stop it from doing it. So it's almost like a thrust washer built into that same piece. Okay, so the next part is the part that actually hits. So the whole thing pivots right here on this point. This is the real pivot that I used to do all the math and figure out where everything was going to land as it shifted and moved around in various positions. So I have this little arm that I built to basically extend the servo up to where this clevis, this pivot point, was going to be, based on what I calculated on the computer. And this is just the arm that actually moves the mechanism. The trick is all in this piece here. I knew that if the servo was locked in, if there wasn't any of this play here that is created in this spot, I knew that when the servo came down and hit the drum, it wouldn't be able to just snap back fast enough, and instead of getting that sound, you'd get something like, and of course that wouldn't work. So I wanted something that would allow that drum to just hit and bounce away and never come back until it's time to hit it again. So what this does, I have a little rubber band going through here, and there's a slot. And what happens is when it's up here, as the servo comes down, it allows it to free fall or actually pulls it down. It's right around that border. So I think it's pulling it down, but then the servo stops and this keeps going on its own. It's like a slingshot. It pulled it down, but then it stopped and it released it. So the servo comes down, hits the drum, bounces up, but by then the servo's already coming up, so it doesn't allow it to fall back down again because it's already pushing it up. And it's like a little dance that has to happen there in order to get a clean tone. And I'll cover that later. We'll calibrate each drum to the proper length of motion so that it actually does what we want. So that's basically the whole thing, other than, you know, the cool chopstick mallet and then a rubber ball. And the rubber ball, I didn't think it would make such a difference, but it actually does. The bigger the ball that was available, the cleaner the sound on this specific drum. So it might take a little experimentation. You might want to get a few rubber balls of different sizes and see what works the best. They all sounded good, but this particular setup sounded a little better. Now the last thing I want to show you is after removing the drum, this is what we have. This is the piece that I cut out of 1/4-inch acrylic. I just thought it'd be cool, and I had access to a laser cutter. It doesn't need to be done this way. It could be, you know, multiple just rectangular bars that go to something. They get bolted in the middle. There could be a disc here that bolts all these little arms to it. And between that and this part of the structure, you'd still have something solid that holds its shape. It just wouldn't be as solid as this one. And the idea was that I might be hanging this vertically on a wall. So I wanted to have the option of maybe adding a little extra support to the drum or bolting it down to this. That's why I made these 3 holes, just in case I want to put it up on a wall and I don't want it, you know, any risk of it falling off its base. So that was the idea there. As of now, it's been sitting on a table. It looks really pretty, and I just leave it there. But basically, what we have are these little bridges that create like a support structure between this part and the base. It creates a little extra rigidity, and the actual servos, or the actual little robots, actually just slide in here like that. They bolt on here and they bolt on from the bottom, and the whole thing just becomes a nice solid little structure.